Hey, Mama. Welcome to Mama Talk Live. I'm Valentina. Today we have a subject that I think a lot of us struggle with. And I think that we could shed some light for all you mamas out there. I'm going to be waiting for my co-host to appear soon, shortly here. I hope you all are having an amazing week.
Hey there, Mama. Welcome to Mama Talk Live. I'm your host, Molly Ann Luna.
And I'm Valentina Izarra.
And this is the place to be. This is where Latina Mamacita sits down with all-American mommy to discuss all topics relevant to womanhood and motherhood.
That's right. So grab your latte or your cafecito because today's topic is going to be really interesting. You guys will want to stay on with us, and we want to know your comments. So make sure that while we're talking, give us your feedback and let us know how you guys also deal with this subject.
Absolutely. So today we are talking about how to strengthen your intuition. So if you're a mommy who has been asking this question to yourself, or you know a mommy, go ahead and click the share button because this is a conversation that I think we could all learn from. In fact, it was prompted because I got 3 different emails from mommies inside of my Mindful Mamas community, specifically asking, Molly, how do I learn how to trust myself more? How do I strengthen my intuition?
That's right. I think a lot of us have, when we go through life, we make mistakes sometimes and we get hurt. And when those things happen to us, there could be moments in our lives where we stop listening to that inner voice of our intuition. And we don't even perhaps even know how to tell the difference between that, that voice that, some people call infinite intelligence, some people call it the sixth sense or whatever you may call it, or your intuition, your gut. You might stop listening to it because you don't no longer trust yourself. So if you've been hurt from a relationship, for example, or if you've been put in some type of like physical danger and you felt like you should have known better than you put yourself out there, and then you get hurt, you become fearful of the fact that you feel like you can't trust yourself anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or if you've made like a poor business decision, or you got into a career that wasn't really good for you, or, you put the kiddos in the wrong school, or, you've made a decision, and how do you get back to that place of knowing and trusting, right? So Valentina, I like that you bring up that there is a difference there between, we've talked about this before as well. Like there's a difference. There's like sometimes multiple, but at least 2 different voices that we tend to hear in our head. And I think it's a topic that we don't really want to talk about much because who wants to admit that they've got multiple things going on inside their mind? But for me, I definitely know when I'm hearing my higher self or my intuition, that piece of me that knows to take the right instead of the left. It's a very distinct feeling. Valentina, how do you identify between the 2 voices?
Well, I went through a period where I was talking about, I got hurt from a relationship, and then all of a sudden I was fearful that I no longer knew how to, I guess, decipher right people from wrong people in my life. So I thought, oh my goodness, I'm not a good judge of character. And so for a while, I really struggled of how to differentiate these 2 voices, because yes, I hear those 2 voices and they're completely different. And what I've learned is that voice will never scream at me. That voice is not also pushed by fear, or it's not emotionally charged. That voice that is my intuition is normally a very quiet voice. And it's usually a suggestion rather than like a demand, like an order.
Yeah.
Do you happen to also find that that's how you differentiate your voice, or how do you tell from your voice?
Yeah. So for me too, that voice that knows what's right and what's wrong, who to trust, who not to trust, to remember to grab the keys before I lock myself out of the apartment. She always speaks in a really soft and sometimes like flowery voice, and it's like very suggestive, like, Molly, I think you should, remember to grab your cell phone or to turn off the coffee pot. Like it's really simple and suggestive. And when she's very quiet, and so you have to really step into more awareness and be looking and asking for that voice to come forward, because otherwise this other voice, this ego voice, it's like, I'll do it myself, I'll figure it out, and just kind of like hard charges through life, makes things so much more challenging, and oftentimes ends up making a lot of messy and silly mistakes that make life so much more challenging.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess just to illustrate a little bit more about the difference in the voices, my hair is like all spiky. I don't know.
You look fabulous, Mama. Just own it.
Just to illustrate a little bit more of the difference between the two different voices, I know that the voice that it's not my intuition, the wrong voice, is a voice that's very demanding, and it's very like
sometimes she's mean.
Yes, and it's a very bossy voice. Like, rather than saying, you know, Valentina, perhaps you should grab that sweater. It might be cold where you're going. Like, that's normally it's a very soft and secure voice. That's usually the voice I should listen to. Mm-hmm. The other voice, is like a sort of a panic voice, and it's very emotionally charged. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, the biggest lesson that I learned. Like, if it's a silent voice, you know, and it's a quiet voice, and it's a very still voice, and it's sort of like comes in a whisper and in a very like secure and like, hey, you know, maybe you should do this, or perhaps it's like you said, suggestive rather than like,
yeah, it is. For me, mommies that are watching, tell us in the comments below, do you hear and feel those two different voices? First of all, can you identify? Do you have that self-awareness of knowing when, I like to call the other one sometimes my inner mean girl. She's very judgmental. She's the one that's like, you know, yesterday I had my baby out and about, and we're running errands, and it got to be late, and she was kind of being mean and bossy and like telling me like, oh, I'm not a good mom because I didn't have dinner on the table, and my baby was hungry and it was cold and I should have packed her an extra jacket. And my inner voice, my intuition was just like gently loving and guiding me and helping me come up with like the next plan of action. But if I wasn't able to first decipher that there are two different ones, and then to really hone in and listen to that gentler voice, the day could have really turned out to be quite negative.
Yes, absolutely. And then the other thing is, well, you know what, talking about those, like you said, mean girl voice, and that makes me think of, like, you know, the little devil and the little angel that you see in like the cartoons. It's sort of like that, because the other one is always like, you know, like pointing fingers and putting blames on others and like panicking. Because sometimes I think people also try to listen to their intuition, but they don't know whether it's their intuition or if it's fear, you know? And sometimes that voice of intuition will tell you to be careful with certain things, but it definitely won't scream those things at you. It'll just be suggestive and say, hey, you know, why don't you maybe you should lock the door right now, or do this. And then if you follow it, even though you don't know why you're following it, you'll be surprised at the results that you get, because that voice is always going to be nice to us, right? It's never a voice of judgment, or it never comes from a place of like demanding and trying to take power over us. It's very subtle, and it's like a whisper.
Oh yeah. Yesterday, and we'll get to how to strengthen this in just a moment, but even yesterday, first I guess I have so many things I want to share. Growing up in the Midwest, like, this was not a topic of conversation. Like, I remember watching those cartoons. You mentioned like the little devil and angel on your shoulder. I didn't get it. And definitely talking about intuition and listening to your higher self was never in my vocabulary. It's only something that I'm recently, in the last couple of years, understanding. So mama, if you're like, what are they talking about? I don't get it. Don't worry. It's a fairly new practice for myself as well. But even just yesterday, I was like rushing out the door. I had my nanny here for just 1 more hour. I wanted to get a little bit more work done on my computer, and I couldn't find my keys for the house. And I was like, and the nanny goes, it's okay, just take mine. We're not gonna leave, it'll be fine. And I heard this little voice inside of me say, take an extra second to find your key, because what if, and this was like almost fear, but it was out of, because you had said sometimes it speaks in fear, but it's out of be careful. And I had this thought of like a fire. And then I was like, but my ego self, and she wasn't really being mean, but my ego self was like, it's fine. Like, you only have an hour to get work done. Like, she was being fearful. Like, you've got to hurry and go take this time and just take the key and go. And I come back, and my nanny was like, Don't worry, it's not a big deal, but just so you know, all the doors and windows are open because I was cooking and I ended up burning something and set the fire alarms off, and everything was under control and it was fine and it was safe. But my intuition before that event even happened was trying to like love and guide me by just that simple thing of like, make sure the nanny has a key too. And so, oh gosh, I feel like I'm going on
it's a pretty amazing story, but things like that, I think the more we tap into that voice and the more we listen to it and the more that I think it's like being in a space of openness, like, and putting ourselves in a place where we're willing to listen to the voice. Because one of the things I did want to talk about with this is like, with our busy lives, when we go around running like this rat race and we keep ourselves busy and we constantly have noise all over the place, like, I know there's a lot of people that are at home and they always have to have the television on, or they always have to have noise. But sometimes when we keep our lives in a state of busy, we don't allow for that voice to come in, and we don't invite that voice to basically come into our lives and
be the leader.
Yes. And I think it's those moments of quietness and stillness that allow us to, allow that voice to come in and sort of guide us and help us with life.
So bringing that up, Valentina, the way I strengthen my communication with my intuition is by doing a sacred practice every morning, sitting in meditation for 15 minutes at the top of my day. Now, as a busy mom, as an entrepreneur, like, I still struggle with this, if I'm being honest, because I'm like, oh, that's 15 minutes. I could get an email like another email sent out, or I could follow up with clients, or I could, tweak my brochure, or make a call for my next public speaking event. Like, I'm like, those 15 minutes are precious. But I find in my own life and practice that actually when I do take that 15 minutes to just be quiet and still, it amplifies my intuition. And then as I move throughout the day, it's like effortlessly swimming in water. It's just, it's easier. What about you?
Well, I do say that one of the things that I think helps me with this is like when I go to bed, if I have a certain dilemma or issue or problem or situation that I'm going through, I'll ask God to basically guide me, and my Holy Spirit to just talk, like, help me wake up with some sort of a solution. And the interesting thing is that I'll wake up with a lot more clarity most of the time when I ask, because I'm asking, like, I guess my subconscious and that more intelligent voice inside of me. And I think like they say, you ask, and when you ask, you shall find. It comes to you. We just have to be willing to ask. I think, in my opinion, like a higher power or anything that you believe in, whether it's like I said, the Holy Spirit, or whether it's God, or whatever it is, or infinite intelligence, to help guide our decisions throughout the day and throughout our lives. And if we actually ask for those things, those answers will come to us. So I think for me, it's more of a practice of, definitely before I go to bed, I get in touch with and I basically tell my subconscious to work on all these things and to let me know, so to guide me. And then normally in the morning, I'll wake up with a lot more clarity than I had the night before. Because usually that voice comes in right the minute I open my eyes. And the minute I open my eyes, it's for some reason, it's that moment of the day where you're in between sleep and being awake, where I hear that voice come in, and then I'll get ideas that are new and fresh that I didn't have the day before. And usually the voice that speaks at the very first thing in the morning, if I don't shut it off, right? Because a lot of us, we hear the alarm, we're like, we get up and we go all frantic. But if we just take those first seconds, like in the morning, to just listen to our body, a lot of times we'll get the clarity for something that we've been searching for. Because we've spent the entire night, I think, working our heads, and something happens that's magical at night, I think, and that allows you to wake up with a much clearer head than the night before.
Yes, having a clear head. I like that. So clearing, just to recap, to clear your mind, have a willingness to be more aware, to sit in stillness, to command from yourself or demand it and say, look, my answers are coming to me now. Changing your internal language and maybe even the way that you're speaking with others as you're moving throughout your day. I guess I'm adding to this, instead of saying, I don't know, or I don't know who I can trust, be changing your language to, the answers are coming to me now, or I'm open and ready to receive guidance for the correct answer, the right thing. So
yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Uh,
I did want to say something else that, if you're at the moment, if any mamas out there, if you're at the moment where you really can't tell and differentiate the voices,
mhm.
I think just simply being aware, so that the next time around, if you have either that voice who says, grab your sweater, or like, it's gonna be cold, or if you hear that voice saying, hey, grab that sweater, it might be cold where you're going, just to listen and be aware of the voices in your head, because it sounds very woo-woo, but just be aware of that, because time will tell. And as you go along, one day you'll go, oh my goodness, that's the voice I need to listen to. For me, and I say that example of grabbing the sweater because the day that I finally recognized the voice that I had to listen to was a day where it was as simple as, Valentina, maybe you should grab a sweater. And I ignored the voice and I went to the place, and it had happened already several times where that voice told me to do something and I ignored it. And it was like these little things that I ignored. But later on, I regretted not listening to that voice. And I told myself, I knew it. Like, why didn't I just listen to that really sweet, suggestive voice that was actually trying to help me? And it was very like mundane things that he was trying to tell me. But from now on, I said to myself, I'm going to trust that voice that tells me these things, because I know what tone she speaks in. And I know that when she speaks, it's a very sweet tone. And so I said, why not listen to this really nice voice that's helping me? And so I started to do that. And I will say that, and I know I told you yesterday, I had a crazy experience where one time that voice told me to close. I was in a hotel with my husband, and I never put the lock, the silver lock, like the chain. But sometimes hotels have a chain, and other times it has that thing where you just fold over. Yes.
Yeah.
And it told me to do that, and I recognized the voice, and I did it. I said, okay, I don't know what you're asking me. It's kind of weird and kind of bizarre because I've never done this. And I happened to close it. And then in the middle of the night, we got a knock on the door. It was like at 2:00 in the morning, and I woke up. And I knew that there was something wrong with the knock. And I told my husband, don't open the door, ask who it is. And when he did, nobody responded. And he looked through the people and he saw somebody like hide down. And then he left. And something told me, it's a good thing that I listened to that voice, because God knows, maybe it was nothing, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And it was a voice that when it told me to lock the door, it wasn't fearful in any way. It was just like, Valentina, maybe you should think about, just double locking the door tonight. And then that was it. So
wow. So wow. I'm so glad you listened to your intuition, because that would be terrifying. That would be absolutely terrifying. But I'm glad that you bring up the point that a lot of times it comes in like subtle, mundane things. So mama, your challenge is to tap into your intuition and be listening for those small things. It might be something small as like, pick up extra spaghetti sauce when you're walking through the aisle at the grocery store. It might be something life-saving, like what Valentina just said, of like, lock the door, because you don't know what was on the other side of that door. And I'm glad that you didn't find out.
Yeah. And the great thing is that the more that you are in touch with that part of yourself, the easier it becomes to hear it when she speaks to you, right? Do you find that the same thing that's also true for you?
It's the way you strengthen it. It's communication. So communication is two ways, right? It's sending a message and then also being open to receiving it. So just to start strengthening it, open yourself up to receive it. And the more that you do, the better time you'll be able to communicate back and forth. And just with those small little practices of being aware, expecting it, and allowing yourself to receive, you will slowly but surely strengthen it. And before you know it, it'll be the voice that's louder and guiding you, making your life more easy and effortless.
Yes, absolutely. And if you still, if you are having this trouble of, like I said, fear, where they're not knowing the difference between fear and intuition, just like we said, be aware of it and know that if you tap into that, you'll learn to recognize it, and be patient with yourself and know that there is something there's a higher intelligence working for you and will always be available to you when you invite that in.
Yes. So mama, if you have a really phenomenal intuitive story that you would like to share, make sure you type it in the comments below, because we would love to hear about it. And any other suggestions you might have about how to strengthen your intuition, let us know, because we're always here open and ready to receive and to learn and grow together.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions about what we talked at all, let us know as well on the comments below. And remember, we're always here at 1 p.m. EST, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, every Tuesday on Mama Talk, always discussing a subject. And we want you to join us, join the conversation, and we'll see you guys next week, right, Molly? Tell them where they can follow you on social media.
You can follow me over at Mindful Mamas TV. And also, if you're here on Facebook, come join us over at the Mindful Mamas community. Just head to mindfulmamastv.com to join.
Yes, and you can follow me on @Mamas Con Ganas on across all social media. And you can listen to my podcast on iTunes, or if you have an Android as well. And the podcast is called Mamas Con Ganas Podcast.
Yes. All right, Mama. I'll see you next Tuesday.
See you next week. And follow your intuition.
That's right.
Ciao.